Hello and welcome to an Everyday Canines video. In this episode in the series Distance Handling 101 Basic Foundations, we're going to be looking at moving on our station work to incorporate in our go work. So we're combining the two exercises, our go, our drive, with self-control. And hey, look, this starts to look like a start line wait. So how are we going to be doing this? We're going to want the dog to be on the mat to begin with. And then I'm going to walk out as if I'm doing a start line wait. I'm not going to go very far to begin with, and I'm going to release the dog. Now, depending on the dog, depends on what I'm going to do after that. So with Magpie, I've got a toy and I'm going to throw it because she likes to chase after a toy and throw it. With Wagtail, I'm doing this as a tug game. So when I release him, I ask him to drive to me and tug at this moment in time. So it's just a question at this moment in time what to do. Oh, and with the other girls, because they're obviously food orientated, I've got a treat ball, so again, I would be throwing it. Now, with Wagtail at the moment, because I am doing this purely driving to me and tug, that's because I'm getting that tug built up, that tug drive. But ultimately, I probably will move it on as well and have it so he runs past me to a toy. Because we're building up that go, that powering on, and as I said before, in a distance handling context, there's less value in driving to the handler than there is driving away from the handler. We need to build that value for driving away because that's what we're going to need. Driving to the handler is easier, but from a distance handling point of view, you're going to spend most of your time driving away and driving past you. So obviously if you're a running handler, there's much more value getting the dog to run to you and tug because you're constantly trying to get the dog to chase you. So you want that value for them to be running to you all the time. But we need to go the opposite direction. When you're doing this exercise, I want you to mix it up. I don't want you to always do this exercise just as it is. I want you to go back and do more value for being on the mat because you'll find that it gets very easy for your dog to start breaking from this because it's going to be high excitement and powering to go into this go. Okay, the release is going to be high powered, it's going to get exciting, there's a thrown toy, there's lots of movement, there's lots of action. This is the less exciting bit. So if we don't put the value into this bit, because the other part is so high value, for most dogs, there'll be some dogs that it isn't, but for most, what will happen is that you lose the going to the mat and holding a position. What you see people do is they teach a weight, they teach that, and they go, got it now, fine. And then they just don't do any more with that. They just concentrate on the release. And as I said before, there's two elements to this self-control. There's the stationary position and the release. And if you concentrate on just one, what are you going to get? You're going to get constantly releasing. So at times you've got to work on that self-control. And honestly, all my dogs, because when you've seen me training my dogs at home, I train all my dogs together and I have them go onto stations, which usually is like a chair or the sofa or my bed, and they have to hold that position while I'm training the other dogs. So I'm constantly reinforcing the idea that you hold a position, that you stay away. Now, I'm not going to say they're perfect. They can be a bit prone to, if they get overexcited, they can get off, so we still work on that. But it is something that always, every time we're training, they're learning that element of self-control. You have to wait your turn. If you've only got one dog, you're not going to be doing that. But what I suggest you do is you always come back at a quiet time, in an evening or whatever. Just do this. This is such a simple game you can do any time. And if you're away at a show, take your mat with you. Take your mat, and when you're sitting at your car or your caravan, just have it on the ground. You can have your dog on the lead so they're not, and you just get your dog to go on it, throw the food away. You're constantly reinforcing, putting the value in for that weight because otherwise you will lose it. So let's show you what we're going to do. Magpie's been happily chomping at the fresh new grass that has just grown up while I've been talking because she's like, come on, Sophie. At this point, with Wagtail, I haven't even yet given him a word for this mat. There's nothing there. I don't tell him to go to or anything. Good girl. And you can see with her, she just chose to go on the mat the second we engaged in the game again. I have no word for this at this moment in time. In fact, if I just go quiet and wait, good girl, she will pick to go in there and sit. And that's the same with Wagtail. I have literally got no word for that. Now, I would perhaps say wait for her because she's more experienced. And if I don't say wait, that might cause confusion. With Wagtail again, though, I say nothing. So now I'm going to go up. Now, if it's Wagtail and I'm really close, I'm new to this, I'm going to start really close. With her, I can go a little bit further, but I'm going to still start close. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to release her. I'm going to have my toy in my opposite hand, and as I release her, I'm going to throw the toy. Go! So you see, it's our game again, isn't it? It's our go game. But like in our go game, I said, what happens if you haven't got a weight? You're going to have someone to help you. Now I've taught you the weight to go with that. So if you've got the go game already, good girl. You've already got that powering on. They know what the go cue is. because that's what we want. If I hadn't got that go cue taught, she wouldn't know what I meant, right? And I don't want to teach her to break off the mat on a go, because that is a specific agility word. I taught the go first, maybe not with a weight. Now I've got the weight here, I can build on it. So I'm going to go out a bit further this time. Hold my position. Now, every time I do this, I want to make sure I'm not releasing her on an arm. That's what happens. If you wave the arm, the dog releases. I don't want that. I'm going to hold. I'm going to check in that she's still sitting there. Go! And release. So again, building up the element. Very often on start lines, people are so twitchy about their start line weight that they're not paying attention to what their dog is doing. They're so worried their dog is going to break and that's going to ruin everything, that they don't take that second to connect and see. So then they start releasing the dog on the arm, and because they just go and the dog goes, they're not actually releasing it on the word. Then they get cross with the dog because the dog is not releasing when they expect it to release. So I'm going to go a bit further. Wait, I'm actually going to do the other side. Go! Good girl. And I can see she's going to power that line. I'm throwing that toy in to keep that go forward. So you see, this is really easy, but I'm focusing on good girl. I'm focusing on that behaviour. The release is great, but I need that behaviour first, because if I don't have that behaviour, I can't have this. So that is your next stage. Now, what if things start to go wrong and your dog is not holding this position? Well, if the dog is not holding the position and automatically holding that, what is happening is that the dog hasn't got enough value for the mat. So you go back. So if you're having a problem with your dog staying there, how can we work on this? Well, we saw how we were building up the fact that dogs got to wait there, be patient and so forth. If you're having a lot of trouble, then what that means is that something's happening. Maybe you're giving the treats too quick. So let me show you what I mean. Supposing my dog is on the mat, good girl, and I do this all the time, there, right? I'm constantly rewarding, right? That's great at the beginning. If I'm always doing that and the dog is learning that I sit there as long as the treat is being power fed to me in a stream, what happens when I take the treat away? What can happen then is the dog goes, oh, well, that's stop, I'll leave. So you need to make sure when you're first doing this that you start to split up. By the way, the reason Magpie is doing that, she's been learning a kickback stand, and that's the motion for a kickback stand. And look how lovely her kickback stand is. So that's all the reason she's doing that. So what I would ask initially is you going, just take a breath. Now feed. Take another breath. Feed. So you're building up that time delay between getting a reward. You're going to reward initially quite quick, and then you're going to build it up. The other reason why your dog is breaking is that you haven't taught the break cue. People get very, very twitchy about that. They think, oh, if I teach a break cue, the dog will break. No, the break cue gives you clarity. So, break. If they understand that they only break when we ask them to, then they should, when we do anything else, stay there. Good girl. It's under your feet, love. There, look. Because they're learning, good girl, that they only get the reward when I tell them to break. Or they get a reward for staying there. Again, if they've got the value for being there, and that's the highest value element, then why would they break? And that's another reason why you can mix up the value of your treats. If you're using high value reward treats there and perhaps lower value rewards there, so for instance, you're using chicken there and kibble coming off, there's always going to be that element of, well, I get the better treats when I'm on there, unless you've got a dog like a spaniel that really doesn't care, or a Labrador. So, but if you need to, go back to this stage where you just mooch. Just move your body a little bit, and then you go break. Or you mix up, you mooch and then you reward them on the carpet. Mooch, reward, mooch, break. See, the dog doesn't know, it isn't anticipating. This is always important. Dogs are so clever, they back chain. So if they work out, well, so this is why people lose their start line weight, because they start the dog there, they walk out, and they put the arm up and they say go. And the dog learns that it's going to be released, but it starts to back chain it because it wants to be released. So instead of waiting for the go, it looks for the arm. That's when people lose it. That's why if you put the arm up first and wait a second, go. I know, I didn't add the toy, did I? Sorry, missus. Then what you're doing is you're removing that back chaining. Okay, it's all about handler here. Now you think to yourself, oh, well, Sophie, but you're just talking about doing all this moving around. You didn't show us that in the last video. Honestly, I didn't do it with Wagtail. I honestly went straight from the exercise you saw in the previous video to the next one. I didn't do any of this. None of it. Didn't do any of it. I literally went from what you saw me doing, where he was on the mat and I was rewarding releasing, to I took one step away and I released to a tug. And I put him back and I did another step away. That is literally where I went with this. Because the foundation was there. I didn't need to do, oh, I'm going to do a weird walk here and, you know, whatever. The only thing I've got with Magpie, do you notice that she's following me? So with Magpie, though she's holding on position on that mat, she's not taking her eyes off me. So whichever way I go, she's going to turn and move with me. But that's okay, because this is not a game where I'm worrying about that, because this is going to be a start line wait. I'm not going to wander behind her. As I say, if you're having problems, go back to your stationary, break. Remember, and this is an important one, when you finish the game, release the dog, take the mat up so they can't go back to the mat. That can be another element that people get wrong. They leave the mat down, the dog goes back, oh no, it wasn't finished, come off, we're finished. You're confusing that. We work with clarity with the dogs, especially with distance handling. Dogs like black and white. Most people do as well. They like to say, this is what this means. So break means you come off the mat. As I said, I'm not giving any cues for this mat apart from the fact that when it's down, they go sit on it, because it has got that value to it. I can ultimately put a cue to it if I need to, and I will probably, but at this stage in time, I don't need to. So that's where you're going to go next with this. You're going to combine your mat work with your go cue. So I tend to do this basic mat work, as you saw in the previous video, then I'll do a few of the goes, but I'll also come back and do more of the mat work. So there's more value going onto the mat than doing a lot of that release. As your dog gets more experienced, you perhaps don't need to do that so much. At the same time, it's always good to work on your foundations. So I hope you've enjoyed this Everyday Canines video, and if you have, you might subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, and you can also check out our website, and I hope to see you all again very, very soon.